Are you sick of being a good girl? You know, the one who says yes to everything when deep inside her heart is saying no. Today's episode is going to free you from the need to please and help you discover your true, authentic voice. Dr. Chelle McQuaid's blend of personal evolution, rigorous science, and warm storytelling will not only help explain why we've all been conditioned to be such good girls, but also why it's important to break free from expectations to please, perform, and protect. Get ready for a conversation that gets to the heart of over 50 and flourishing. Hello, Chelle. It's good to see you. And thank you for getting up so stinking bright and early. What time is it in Melbourne, Australia?
It's 7 a.m., Dom, so I'm not going to lie. There's not a long time since I rolled out of bed, so we'll see how the brain goes.
Well, you look amazing for 7 a.m. That's all I have to
Thank
say.
you.
So thank you. Thank you for getting up early for us gals on Over 50 and Flourishing. We so appreciate you. And I'm just so excited to pick your brain because you talk about, and you have a podcast called the Good Girl Game Changers podcast. And I love it because I think we're all sort of recovering good girls. And I say that lightly, right? I mean, it's sort of an oxymoron. Well, wait a second. Don't we all want to be good girls, right? But we've been good girls to a fault. And
Mm.
that's your deep dive. So, kind of launch into a little bit about you and how you started this podcast and messaging.
Yeah, well, I think like you, Dom, and I'm sure many of your listeners, I am a reforming good girl, is the way I like to
Yeah.
describe it. And for me, that journey, as for so many of us, started really early in childhood. My memory is being about 5 years old, going with my mum to the supermarket. She was a single mother, a school teacher, and so there wasn't a lot of money in our house. And if there was about 40 cents left at the end of the supermarket shop, you got to take that 40 cents and buy a book, because being a school teacher, books were considered these very precious things in our house. And so on one of these shopping trips, amazingly, there was like 40 cents left at the end. And so Disney used to have these little golden books, and they'd be at the end of the supermarket checkout counter.
Mm.
And so you go up to the stand of all the golden books. It was like, choose carefully. And I remember seeing this book. I still remember it to this day. And it had a yellow cover, and there was this hand-drawn little girl in the middle of it. And she was looking out at me, very calm and serene. Her hands were kind of gently clasped across her, stomach area. But around the corner, there was these images, smaller ones, of the same little girl, but she was pulling her sister's hair, breaking her mother's vase. Like, she was doing all the things that I recognized really well. And I grabbed this book. I couldn't read the title. I wasn't old enough. And I remember my mother, who thought of herself as a feminist at that time,
Mm.
reading the title and going, "Good little, bad little girl, are you sure?" And I'm like, yes, this is the book. So she used to read to my sister and I every night. So that night we were tucked in bed, and she starts reading this book. And the book is full of all these examples of the good little girl who was tidy and quiet and
Mm.
polite and didn't eat too much. And then there was this bad little girl who was loud and messy and demanding and argumentative. And the big surprise towards the end of the book was that the two little girls were the same little girl, but if
Mm-hmm.
you made the good little girl grow taller and taller and the bad little girl smaller and smaller, then you would be happy and loved.
Mm.
And I think that this is the message that so many of us get young in life, is that we earn love by these good girl behaviors of performing perfectly, pleasing others, protecting everyone. And for me, I made my poor mother read that story over and over again. I think it was my first self-help book, Tom. I was determined I was going to learn how to be
At the
this good
ripe
little
old age
girl.
of, what?
Exactly. So often what we're finding in the research is at early ages, whether it's a book like this, maybe it was a TV show, maybe it was being told at school, be a good girl, maybe in our faith communities or our sporting groups or just our family
Mm.
homes, and often to try to keep us safe in a world that's not always easy to navigate, we pick up these messages. And Dr. Carol Gilligan's research has found that by the age of 11, most of us have absorbed this idea that society expects expects us to be good girls in order to be safe and to earn people's love. And then what we see in our research is often by about sort of mid 30s, mid 40s, we've become exhausted from trying to be these good girls, and we're feeling burnt out. We're feeling resentful about all this good girl behavior we're doing for everybody else. And we feel like we've lost our sense of self. And so it's been really interesting studying, living myself, talking to other women about this good girl journey. And when it's not serving us well, how do we break free from these expectations?
Yeah, boy, you just nailed it on the head. And I tell you what, as you shared these stories, I am so grateful that I had the mother that I did, because she would sit there and she would highlight the stories of me acting out as a child, because I was like the notorious good girl, always just sweet and kind and nice to everybody. And she would love to tell the stories of how, when in the bank drive through, we're at the window with the little cone that goes down
Yeah.
the thing, and someone behind us is honking because we're going too slowly, and I roll down my window and reach out and do this with my fist to the person behind me, and she would just relish these moments when I would just act on the feeling, and it wasn't
Yeah.
ladylike behavior, and it wasn't good girl behavior, but it was anger and it was frustration. And she's like, well, that's a part of you too.
It was honest, Dom, right? You were being
it,
uniquely you, as we like to say.
Yes, it was honest. And
Yeah.
somewhere along the way, to your point, through messaging, whether it is parent, society, school, whatever, we lose our way and we bury the real. And it becomes very problematic, because I have found personally, and I'm sure you have too, that the longer you go in being the good girl, the harder and harder it is to get back to the real girl, because you feel like you're going to be punished for that.
Yeah, definitely. And we talk about in the research this kind of junk food love that comes with being a
Mm,
good girl, right? We feel like we're earning love and safety, but it's a
yes.
bit like a sugary hit, right? It only lasts for about 30 minutes, and then we've got to keep doing it over and over and over again to keep earning this sense of love and safety. So we're fitting in, versus when we honor that and we're honest about that uniquely you way that each of us show up in the world, and we're not hiding that or constraining it, locking it down. What happens is we get this more nutritious love, is what we
Mm,
call it, where, yep, not everybody might be happy with us all the time. And yep, not everybody might like us. There may be more friction in this approach. And what the research also shows is it's more nourishing. We feel more like we're thriving. We feel more
mm.
authentic. And instead of just fitting in, we feel like we belong because we are loved for who we are, not loved because we've had to earn it that way.
Yes, it's very performance based, isn't it? Talk a lot about ways that it manifests when we continue to put on this good girl facade.
Yeah, so we really see these three particular areas came out of our research and other people's as well. That first is performing perfectly so we
Mhm.
can avoid criticism. So we're over preparing, we're overworking things. I think we see this over and over again in all
Mhm.
sorts of research on women, that we feel like it has to be done perfectly or otherwise we'll be criticized and we won't be good enough. I think this feeds into all of that imposter syndrome so many of us relate to. The second area is around pleasing others. So, this feeling that we can't set healthy boundaries, we can't say no, we're doing all the emotional work for everybody around us.
Mhm.
And so, that is a big piece around what's contributing both to the exhaustion and the resentment of then going, I'm sick of doing everything for you. And then the third area was this protecting others. And this is really around how women so often silence ourselves in order to make other people feel okay. And so I loved on that example of you at the
Mm.
drive-through at the bank and shaking your fist, like, what a beautiful example of not silencing how you felt. But we see
Yeah.
this in things like the Me Too movement, where, of course, women have silenced themselves over and over and over again in the face of really horrific behaviour. But we do it in order, not so much, although sometimes, to protect the perpetrators, but to protect the other people around us so they don't have to deal with the ugliness and the pain of what is
Mm.
often a woman's experience in this world.
Yeah, Shell, I am so intrigued by your research. Can you give me a deep dive? What prompted it, and what did it look like? How many women? What was the study all about?
Yeah, so I am a data nerd by heart, Dom. I love the
I
research
love
to
it.
try to help me make sense of the world.
That's
And in
good.
particular, I've spent the last 20 years researching human thriving. So when we're at our
Mhm.
best, what does that look like? What makes it possible? I was really curious. I do this in workplaces and schools and communities all over the world. I kept bumping up against the same challenge over and over again. And people would be like, we want to have more levels of well-being. We want to feel like we're thriving. The science makes sense. There are all these little tiny evidence-based practices we know we can do now that are busy proof, things we can fit into our day. And then people just would not do it consistently. And I was like, what gets in the way? Why does this keep breaking down for us? And initially people would just be like, oh, it's too busy. I meant to do it, just didn't get there. But when we scratch underneath that, because we're all busy, yes, but we're also busy to a large extent with the things we choose to prioritize. Yep, there'll
Mhm.
be some
That's
things,
right.
like I've got two sons, I have to be busy to a certain degree with them, or otherwise, there's all sorts of problems that fall out of that. But there's still space in my life for other things I choose to be busy with. Yep. So why weren't we choosing to prioritize looking after our well-being and these things that would help us thrive? And when I got right underneath kind of all the excuses and the reasons that this gets in our way, what was really going on, particularly for women, was, well, I don't feel like I deserve to prioritize myself because I've got to be this good girl that's looking after everybody else, pleasing everybody else, performing for everybody else. And so I was like, God, what do we do with these expectations? So I started with qualitative research. We brought women together from all over the world into focus groups, a series of conversations.
Mhm.
And we asked them about their earliest memories of being told to be good girls. How had that played out for them? What did that look like? What was the cost? What were the benefits of it? And then we also asked them, you know what, when you break free of those beliefs, what does that look like? And
Mm.
what makes that possible? And what are the benefits of that? And are there costs to that? So we could really try to see the two sides. I like to think of it, Dom, as a kind of a continuum. Very few of us are good girls every moment of the day, to
Yeah.
your own example, but very few of us managed to break free. And once we had some themes there, then we went and did population studies in Australia and in America to start with more than 1,000 women in both samples, to kind of test, did those themes play out?
Fascinating. And I want to dive more into what you discovered, but I personally think, especially among our demographic, I think the whole good girl facade broke when we lost estrogen. And
I
we're going to
agree
talk more,
entirely.
right? And we're going to talk more about losing the good girl syndrome and when that happens and why. And if it hasn't happened to you yet and you need to kind of right the ship, what you can do about it. My guest today is Dr. Chelle McQuaid, and she has the Good Girl Game Changers podcast. And hey, there's nothing wrong with being good, but maybe not all the time. And we'll be right back after this.
Hey there, you guys know as a news anchor for 30 years, I did not spend a lot of time in the kitchen. Let's face it, I just didn't have the time working late evenings and night times. So with this new life of mine comes new experimentation in the kitchen, and I am loving it, discovering new recipes. But what I am loving even more is Caraway Home. I use Caraway Home because it's easy to cook with and clean after, but the most important part here, healthy and non-toxic for me and my family. And it's so stylish to serve. That's a win-win in my book. My old cookware, it was a little long in the tooth. What can I say? And frankly, I didn't know how safe it was. But Caraway brings you peace of mind with their non-toxic cookware that is free of dangerous chemicals. Plus, so many beautiful styles and modern shades to choose from, goes with any aesthetic. Hey, we did the math here, and their internet famous cookware set comes with the saute pan, fry pan, Dutch oven, and saucepan, plus lids and storage. It is the ultimate kitchen setup. Again, doing the math, the cookware set is going to save you $150 versus buying all of these items individually. Plus, if you visit carawayhome.com/flourishing, you can take an additional 10% off your next purchase. This deal is exclusive for our listeners. So visit carawayhome.com/flourishing or use code flourishing at checkout. Caraway, non-toxic cookware made modern.
Welcome back. We are having such a fruitful conversation with Dr. Chelle McQuaid from Melbourne, Australia. She is the host of the Good Girl Game Changers podcast, a researcher. We were talking, Chelle, about your research into women in your different focus groups. And before break, I teased on estrogen and how I believe that can quickly get rid of the whole good girl facade, because you know what? That little protective shell is gone. But I also am so curious about something. You researched women in Australia and women in the States. Did you find any cultural differences between the two?
Not hugely, no. We
Mm,
found in both instances about 77% of the women in both countries were reporting this pressure to be good girls.
okay.
And again, sort of 82% of them feeling they had to perform perfectly, 86% of them pleasing others all of the time, and 78% of them
Mm,
silencing their true feelings. So they're really high on those sort of three factors we were talking about before the break. What was fascinating, though, to me, Dom, and around your estrogen observation, was the how this shifted over demographics and age groups. And so
mhm.
for women, because I was born in the 70s, I'm 52 now, I really thought maybe this was just a thing of my generation.
Yeah.
It's amazing to understand that for our generation, we were the first as we were born to be able to get bank accounts without our fathers
Mm,
or brothers or husbands' signatures, to be
right.
able to keep our jobs when we got married or pregnant. Like, it just blows my mind what our mothers were navigating before our generation arrived. And so I really thought, look, maybe this is just it's a my generation thing, and young women wouldn't feel that way anymore. That was not the case. In fact,
Mm,
young women today, aged 18 to 24, are far more likely to feel the pressure to be these good girls than anything that we've seen at other age groups. And so it follows this curve of the pressure to be a good girl from about 18. We didn't study below 18. We were looking at adults. So from 18 through to about 35, that is the most intense period for these good girl expectations. And then around the 35 to 45, it starts to crumble because we're struggling to keep up with it. By then, we've normally hit exhaustion and resentment and
mhm.
feeling lost about things. We're like, we can't go on this way. And then, sort of 45 to 54, we start looking for, well, how do I be uniquely me? How do I honor who
Mm,
I am? How do I get back who I am? Which, of course, is often where perimenopause for many of us is starting to kick in. And then 60 and beyond, on these were the women that were least likely. Now, they still have about 47% of them telling us, yeah, I still feel somewhat pressured to be a good girl, but we see those numbers increasingly declining and them more often breaking free to be their unique selves.
That perfectly aligns. I have to tell you, anytime I do a post about living your most authentic life, whether it's on social media or whether it's a dedicated podcast, I hear most frequently probably from the 60 plussers who
Yeah.
say, you know what, I'm there. I am unapologetic. I am free. I am living my best life. They've arrived, so to speak. And I have to say, I'm kind of shocked by
Yeah.
your younger demo numbers. I
Yeah.
would have thought that there would have been some societal changes there. I'm sure Courtney, who's listening, my producer, she's just turned 30. She's probably scratching her head thinking, well, wait a second, I thought we've overcome this. Why do you think that is in the younger generation?
Yeah, well, I think unfortunately we only have to go on things like Instagram to see the incredible pressure for these young women to be good girls, to be performing perfectly, to be
Mhm.
trying to please others, to still be protecting people. I still think we have a lot of societal messaging from really early ages. I still think our school system is designed to teach young girls, be good, sit on the mat quietly, you'll get the gold star, get the good grades, look after each other, be good friends. I still think, unfortunately, often unconsciously, as mothers ourselves of girls, again, we pass on what we've learned if we're not aware of how these things have impacted our lives. And we often do it, as my mother did, to keep us safe, right? To say, look,
Mm.
it's a hard world out there. You will navigate it more easily if you can fly under the radar, and then you'll find your own ways to be your uniquely you self in moments. But most of the time, it will be easier for you if you conform conform to what these expectations are. And I want to acknowledge again, our research is the US and Australia in particular, but there are parts of the world where if you are not a good girl and don't behave that way, your life is on the line. And so again, it's not just women in Western countries that get this pressure, but women in Western countries perhaps have more choice in how we get the freedom. And that's really two things we found in the research. One was, are there other women around us role modeling and mentoring what it looks to break free from these? So for those of us who are already finding our freedom with this, keep going and be loud and proud about it, because
Mm-hmm.
it is the best gift we can give to the women coming behind us that this is possible. But the second piece was financial freedom. And I think, again,
Yes.
the reality is a lot of this good girl ideology and the idea that it keeps us safe came from the fact that it is only 50 years ago that unless we were good girls and had a man to help fund and support us, we didn't have the financial freedom to be uniquely ourselves.
Interesting. And as I hear you talk about the younger generation, what came to mind was the consequences are so steep to defend yourself. Think
Yeah.
about it. Back in our day, stuff got figured out on the playground.
Yeah.
The boys duked it out. Nobody was, withdrawn from school or given a police record, or do you
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? The
Yeah.
stakes are so high
Yeah.
to defend yourself, to speak your mind, whether in person or on a platform, that people are so afraid that
Yes.
the society is forcing people to become good little girls and good little boys because
Yeah.
the risk is too great, and we're emasculating our men, and we're taking freedom away from women, and it's really kind of sad when you think about it.
Yeah, it's such an interesting piece because the society expectations for men tend to be less around being good boys, but being real men. And
Hmm.
so, what we see is often by the ages of about 7 to 11, boys still have learned, hey, what's expected of me is that I am more assertive, dominant, therefore aggressive, competitive, all those more masculine emotions as we often think about them, while the girls are being conditioned to be good. And this is still going on for men today. I think it's interesting around the emasculation of men. And again, I have two sons. I think guys are stuck in just as equally a hard spot as women are around these societal expectations. And what's been interesting, we have started studying the male side of this as well, is what's interesting is the what sets us all free to be more of our unique selves, to thrive as the perfectly imperfect human beings that we are, is actually the same set of skills. Those are not gender specific, but the starting place of expectations is a little different for each of us. And it is something that we are continuing to be conditioned for.
And I would think too, once you release this kind of good girl mentality and you start to kind of break the chains of that, you have to prepare yourself for the fallout from that, right? Because it's not like you're going to suddenly speak your mind, tell the truth, and there won't be reaction or response, whether it is within friends, within family, a larger social circle, or a following. So, how do you address that?
Yeah, so all the women in the research spoke exactly to that, Don. They were like, you know what? When you start breaking free of these good girl expectations, not everybody is going to like it, because
Right?
other people generally get a lot of benefit from us being good girls.
Yes.
And so the idea that we're going to be uniquely us and we're not going to try to perform perfectly all the time, please everybody, protect everybody, is like, whoa. And I certainly
Hmm.
know for myself, I don't know about you, Don, when I started more consciously breaking free of those good girl beliefs, there were family and friends and colleagues that didn't necessarily like the honesty that came with that. But also, I think the boundary setting and the fact that there was less hustle in me to try to perform and perfect things all of the time. So I think number one, exactly as you're talking about, being conscious that, you know what, maybe not everybody will like it when I am uniquely myself. And number two, the alternative is I stay stuck in this place where I'm fitting in, but I'm never truly belonging.
Mm.
And which of these is more important for me at this moment in my life and for the outcomes that I'm wanting right now and the resources available to me? And so, again, I'm always big one on make an informed choice. I don't mind which choice you make, but try to make it an informed choice. And we find that there are two questions that are really helpful for us in this situation to make that choice. And those two questions are, on whose terms and for whose benefit am I
Mm-hmm.
living this wild and precious life?
Right.
And the right answer to that, Dom, is really it's just all me. It's just my terms and it's just my benefit, because we're wired to be social creatures. It's normally a bit of me and a bit of you, and how we're going to do this together. What it can't be on an ongoing basis is it's always on your terms and it's always at my cost, because that is
Yes.
where it is not sustainable. It's where we see burnout and depression and exhaustion just become overwhelming, and we start to disengage with life. And that is the path, right, where we don't start to take steps around this. The path often around our mid 40s, late 40s, into our 50s is that we start to really disengage with life around us because it feels unsustainable.
Correct. That's exactly right. You know, it's so funny. I had a reformed good girl moment not that long ago when I was approached by a really good friend of mine to be a part of a project that he was very passionate about, wanted me involved in. You know, on paper, everything was neat. You know, maybe in my former life I would have said yes to it, even though it might not have been the best thing for me. But what I found is, as I was listening to the breakdown of what it was, and I started to find holes in the project and in the situation, I found myself speaking out and addressing those holes. What about this? What about that? You know, I'm not sure about this. I don't see how this quite benefits me. And I did so in a very tactful and respectful way, but from an informed place, not an emotional place. And when we got off the call, it was very clear to both of us that this would not be something that I would be a part of, although I was excited for him and I wished him well. And I hung up and I thought, you know what? The Dominique of 5 or even 10 years ago wouldn't
Yeah.
have done that. She
Yeah.
probably would have found a way to please her friend, fit
Yeah.
in, be a part of something that really wasn't an ideal fit. And and it was such a freeing, eye-opening kind of awakening for me. It's like, wow, you know, you've kind of crossed over to the other side, woman.
Yeah. I love that. And again, I think those breaking free moments are so important for all of us. And it doesn't, again, mean we have to be one or the other here, right? We
Right.
could have a break free moment like that and then have a different situation with a friend or family member where we're like, you know what? I'm just going to do a little people pleasing here to get through with this person right now, but I'm choosing to do it. And when I need to also choose to set my boundary with this person, I'm going to choose to do that as well. So there were 3 skills we found on that really helped in the research for women to be able to navigate these choices as to where do I want to be along this continuum. And the first was self-compassion. So
Mm,
being that wise and kind friend to ourselves, just like we are to so many other people. And I think the key we really saw in the research there, Dom, was women coming to a place where we could accept that we are all perfectly imperfect, that nature wired us this way so we could learn and grow and adapt and evolve as the world around us and within each of us keeps changing. And the moment that women got to that place of, oh, we're all
mhm.
perfectly imperfect, none of us have this all
Phew.
figured out. Exactly, like pressure off. Yes, I
Right.
can be self compassionate with myself because, oh my God, there's nothing wrong with me. And so this was often the first but most important step change where women were able to just hold a little bit looser all of this good girl expectation to go, you know what? I'm neither good nor bad. I'm just a perfectly
Mm,
imperfect human being doing the best I can to navigate life, just like everybody else. So, talk about pressure off. The second skill then was around secure attachment. So, we might have heard about secure attachment in terms of how we grew up. Did we feel safe and supported by our parents? We also, recent years, have heard it around our romantic partners. Do we feel safe and supported? So, securely attached. We're not going to be abandoned or left behind by people.
mhm.
But what I love in the newer research in this field is secure attachment to self. And this, Dom, was so important. Once
Ah,
people
yes.
started to get self-compassionate was, will I show up for myself? Will I advocate for myself? Will I ask for what I need? Will I set healthy boundaries where I need to? And it was when women began to trust themselves that so much of this shifted dramatically. And then the third skill, which we can dive in more if you want to, was around self-leadership. And this was around really understanding that we all have these beautiful self-capabilities of curiosity and creativity and compassion and courage and confidence and clarity already within us. Our brains are wired for these things. It's just often that they get kind of clouded over when we get scared by all the different things coming at us in life. But the more we can trust that, yes, I had those capacities within me, and to lead from that place, the more it enables us to navigate the ups and downs we all experience in life without being hijacked by the fear to go back to these good girl behaviors.
You know what I'm hearing from you in everything you describe is that this boils down to, am I worthy?
Yeah,
It's
so
a
much.
worthiness issue, and there is a lot of self-doubt and a lack of self-esteem and a lack of self-worth for women to even move forward with this. How can women reestablish, if they've lost it, or bolster their worthiness to think, "Hey, this matters and I am worth this."
Absolutely. Well, I think again, a big part of that is just remembering we are all born worthy. Yeah, we're all born perfectly imperfect,
That's
so
right.
that we can learn and grow and adapt. Nobody has it figured out. Worthiness is not something we earn.
Mhm.
Worthiness is inherent within each and every one of us. We are all worthy of love and support and care as we try to navigate this life. And the moment we come to that and we stop thinking everybody else has got it figured out, I just don't, and we let go of what we've been told about, well, you have to earn your worthiness, and instead come back to the fact, you know what, we are these amazing, messy, magical beings that get to
Mhm.
navigate this planet. We all have these beautiful capabilities within our brains for the curiosity and the creativity, the compassion, the courage, the confidence that we need. And it's then trusting and believing in that. And so I almost like to run little experiments each day on my self-worth just to prove that I am, right? Sometimes it's
Yes.
hard to believe. And when you do, you start to see over and over again, oh, yeah, okay, I did stuff that up. I didn't get that right. But you know what? I owned it, apologized for it. I'm learning from it. Next
Mhm.
time I'll do better from it. That is what worthiness looks like.
Beautiful. And what you speak of is pure faith right there. We are loved by our creator first and foremost. And once we can accept and embrace that, it all goes from there. We're going to take a quick break, Shell, thank our sponsors for this amazing episode. But when we come back, I really want to break it down into kind of bite-sized nuggets for women to have applicable, real, approachable ways to help get past this good girl syndrome, to still be full of love and kindness, but also, most importantly, toward themselves. We'll be back right after this. Let's talk about finances. I know, tough subject, but it's something that we need to discuss, whether we are independent or in a relationship and marriage. I think it's critical to have that financial talk as well as a financial plan. And it can be really tough figuring out where our money is going. I mean, there are blind spots like DoorDash, Instacart, then there's, the impulse Amazon buy, rideshare services, concerts, entertainment, you name it. Before you know it, you've got your money flying out the door. Finances are messy, but Monarch Money acts like your personal CFO. It gives you full visibility and control so you can now stop earning and start growing. It's more than your average budget app. Monarch Money is a complete financial command center. It's like a hub. Think about it that way for your accounts, investments, and your goals. That's what I love about it. You get to see everything in one place. For me, it was actually kind of surprising. I didn't realize, those things that I mentioned, like DoorDash, and eating out, how much of a kind of financial suck it was on the budget. So Monarch Money is keeping us honest. It's keeping us real. Also, you can learn how to max out your 401k. You can take care of today and you can prep for tomorrow. I think it's important to have a clear financial picture because your financial dreams can feel out of reach if you don't. So get control of your overall finances with Monarch Money. Use code Dominique. That's DOMINIQUE at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code Dominique. And welcome back. We are having, oh my gosh, I am loving this conversation with you, Dr. Chelle McQuaid.
Right back
First
at
of all,
you.
will you come back? I just want you to come back
Always.
because I'm serious. I feel like we could go for hours and hours. This is such a wonderful, wonderful conversation on a topic that we have yet to explore here on Over 50 and Flourishing. And as we were saying in the commercial break, you and I feel like the whole menopause discussion that is taking place, finally, that's happening,
Mhm.
is sort of opening the door to all of these ancillary conversations that need to be happening because, due to, I would say, a lack of estrogen, which initially kicks it off, where we suddenly don't feel, to me, the estrogen is the bathing in the good girlness, right?
Yes.
We're like coated in it. And then the minute we lose it,
Yeah.
suddenly the other person, is in there, starts coming out. So we're trying to find this dance and this nuance, but these changes in us lead to a lot of other changes that need to happen. And that's what we're talking about. Your whole research and study has been on women who are trying to break free from being good girls, and whether it is from parental, societal, you talked about all these different origins of this, but now there's this awareness and awakening, and women who are like, all right, I want to shake this off. I'm tired of it. It feels like a weighted coat in a way. Let's talk about that. How do we start remedying this problem?
Yeah, well, shaking it off is actually a really great place to start somatically. And so
Right.
anytime you're feeling those good girl beliefs are kind of like crowding you in, absolutely, there's a lot of science to support. A full body shake of just letting that stuff go can be
Okay, let it
really
go.
helpful for your nervous system. So, Dom, you're absolutely onto something there.
Okay.
A couple of other tools that might help us is we think about that need to perform perfectly. We were talking before the break about
Mm,
often the first step on this breaking free journey is realizing we are all perfectly imperfect, and
yes.
actually we're meant to be. We are
Mm,
meant to be so that we can learn and grow and adapt and evolve as the world around us and within us keeps changing. And so that can be really hard. Again, I'm a reforming perfectionist. The idea that I would not do things perfectly, just like you, Dom, and I'm sure many of the listeners today,
yes.
that was painful. It felt
Mm,
unsafe for
right.
me to walk away from not trying to do everything perfectly. Who would I be? So much of my identity was tied up in that, my sense of worth, as we were talking about before the break, but
Hmm.
also my sense of safety. So I love the research here, Dr. Carol Dweck at Stanford University, around what she calls our growth mindsets. So she talks about the fact this idea that we need to do it perfectly is often tied to a fixed mindset, that I come into the world with a certain amount of talent, ability, intelligence, and then I've got to prove my worth over and over again. So I'm clever or dumb, I'm good at sport or I'm clumsy, I'm musical or tone deaf, and that's my lot in life. So I better perfect it and I better show it off over and over and over, and then I will be loved. Yeah.
Hmm.
The growth mindset alternative, though, that Carol has found in her research, and this is often in our schools, if you've got younger kids and you ask them about growth mindset, chances are they've probably heard it in the classroom these days, which is great news, but often our generation missed it. What
Yeah.
Carol's research has found is actually, yeah, we all come into the world with a certain amount of talent, ability, intelligence, and with effort and practice that can always improve right throughout our lives. It's not that long ago we thought once we got to our early 20s, your brain was kind of set. That was your lot. You didn't get any better than that. But we know we keep learning right throughout our lives now neurologically. And so Carol has this beautiful little tool that I often reach for when my perfectionism needs to be scratched and is kind of annoying me. And that is simply not yet. So when I'm getting something wrong, I'm bumping up against my limitations, falling short of my ideals, failing publicly where everyone can see, I
Hmm.
just remind myself, you know what? I'm not there yet. Yeah. So maybe I'm not great at maths today. Well, I'm just not there yet. With effort and practice and support, could I get better than where I am today if this is important to me? Absolutely. Now, does that mean I'll be a maths genius in a year's time? Probably not. It's not what my brain does in its natural state. But can I be better than I am today if that's what matters? Yes, is the answer. So, not yet is a really beautiful way just to remind ourselves when we're in the midst of struggle. I'm not a failure. I'm not broken. There's nothing wrong with me. I'm not an imposter. I'm just not there yet on this particular skill or area of my life. What are your
Wow.
thoughts on that one, Dom? Would it be
I
useful?
love that. Well, that's a beautiful way to couch it. And it also lets you know that it is a journey and it may manifest, or something else may manifest in its
Right.
place that you've yet to even conceive. So
Yeah.
it leaves the door open, which is phenomenal. I love that mindset. And
Yeah.
here's the other thing too that I think about as you're saying all of this. You know, being a good girl and being a perfectionist, as you know, it's a control thing.
Yeah.
And it can be sort of like your own pillow around
Mhm.
you. And
Mhm.
it's, you know, it's my comfort. It's where I
Yep.
feel safe. It's where I feel soft. And don't wouldn't you agree that our greatest growth, our greatest wisdom and maturing happens in the hard parts? It happens in the
Absolutely.
ugly, it happens in
In
the
the
messy,
uncomfortable, right?
it happens in the uncomfortable, it happens in the epic fails. It
Yeah.
happens when we are honest and
Yeah.
have maybe there's fallout from that. Why
Yeah.
are we in such chronic avoidance of the messy?
Yeah. So again, because we think we have to earn our worthiness and love and safety, we try
Mm,
to keep all that mess under the covers where nobody else can see it. And this is why imposter syndrome is such a thing for so many women, because we're terrified that you'll see the mess and then
yeah.
we won't be worthy, we won't be loved, we won't be safe. So, two more tools I'd love to give your listeners to be able to help, kind of like, because again, we can cognitively, in our thinking part of our brain, know, okay, I'm meant to be perfectly imperfect. I'm not there yet. But sometimes it's hard for our nervous systems and our bodies to catch up to that. And so the second tool I want to give you listeners is for that somatic piece. So we talked before about the shaking, that can definitely
Mhm.
be a great somatic tool. One of my other favorites, though, is if your listeners want to play along with this one and simply hold our hands up in front of our face so our palms are
Okay.
facing towards our face. So you're looking at your palms towards your face. What
Okay.
we're going to do is cross our wrists and hook our thumbs. So we've sort of created like a little butterfly set of wings here. And we're
Okay.
going to take that butterfly set of wings and just put them across our heart area. So
Whoop.
they're on your
This is a
chest.
challenge. Okay, wait.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Okay, okay,
so then when you've got them on your chest, again, if you want to follow along and it's safe to do so at this moment,
okay.
you might want to close down your eyes or just look down at the desk in front of you. We're going to take in a nice slow inhale here through the nose. And a nice slow exhale right into that chest area. Oh, you might even want to sigh it a little bit as it goes. What we're going to do now is just gently tap our fingertips there onto the chest, like your butterfly wings are having a little flap. And whatever rhythm works for you is just fine. It might be quite a slow and steady pace, a bit in line with your heartbeat, or it might be a little more solid and steady if that's what's feeling reassuring for you. You're looking for kind of that sense of like comfort in this moment, like I'm here, I've got you, I'm with you. And as you're doing that, just keep breathing nice and gently in through the nose. And you might want to keep gently just sighing that out. And I like Dom here, well, I'm often here just to have a little mantra for myself that reminds
Mm.
me I am safe, I am loved, I am fully supported. I am safe, I am loved, I am fully supported. And you could hang out here for as little or as long as you want. Sometimes I call this the butterfly hug. Maybe it's just a
Mm,
few minutes in the busy day.
mm,
Other times I could happily sit there for an hour or so.
mm,
When you're ready, I'll get you to open your eyes and come back towards us
mm,
all. But it's just this sense, again, remember secure attachment to
mhm,
self is about reassuring ourselves, I've got you. I will show
mhm,
up for you. I will advocate for you. I will ask for what you need. I will set boundaries for you. And we need to reassure our nervous system at this somatic
mhm.
level,
Yes.
I've got you. And so, whatever way works for you, again, we're using a bit of touch and rhythm that's hopefully soothing and comforting here as we do it for our nervous system, and pair it with whatever words or mantra help you remember, I've got you. A little bit of this every day actually helps to rewire and just settle our
Mhm.
nervous system back down to remember we are absolutely worthy as we head out there in the world. How is that for you, Dom?
It's beautiful, and I couldn't help but notice the power of the hand gesture,
Mm.
the interconnecting of the
Yeah.
thumbs is like a hug,
Mm.
right? It's tight, And the tapping of the chest and the heart area
Yeah.
is the center, love, honesty, that's our root right
Yeah.
there. And that connection to self and that touch, how often do we actually touch ourselves
Mm.
in a light, gentle way as a reminder? Think about it, when we were young and we needed nurturing and affirming, what would our parents do? They would hug us
Yeah.
and they
Mhm.
would tap us.
Yeah.
So, what you have just provided us is that self soothing of what we used to get from a
Absolutely.
maternal or paternal figure, which is beautiful. And it is a hook back to self and to
Yeah.
comfort. And I think that's absolutely beautiful. I love that. And thank you for sharing that with me and with everybody.
Yeah, I love it. It's such, again, an easy and accessible thing. So if I'm a bit stressed during the day or a situation's
Mhm.
happened and I feel like I've gone right back into that good girl place, or I've
Right.
got to say something or set a boundary that I know is feeling a bit scary and overwhelming
Yes.
for me, it's this very accessible, easy, kind of can take a quiet moment anywhere and do it, somatic
Yeah.
reassurance. The third
Yeah.
skill I wanted to leave your listeners with, then again, we're going a little bit deeper with each of these skills so
Mhm.
people choose where it's right to start for them in different moments, is this self leadership that we spoke about in the research. And this taps into the internal family systems work, IFS, that's become increasingly popular over the last few years, your listeners may have come across. And in internal family systems, we think about the fact that inside each of us is kind of this little family of different parts, all trying to keep us safe, help remind us that we're worthy and that we're loved. And kind of like the parent of these parts is that self energy, that part that we were talking about before, we all have within our brains, that is curious and creative and compassionate,
Mm.
courageous, confidence, all those beautiful things, but that often gets clouded over when we're scared or afraid by these parts who think, you know what, I've got a better way to keep you safe. And so that need to be perfect is one of those parts, that need to please others, one of those parts, that need to silence
Mhm.
ourselves to protect people, one of these parts. So when we feel like those parts are kind of jumping into the driver's seat of our brain and we're struggling to access that curious, calm, creative part of ourselves, noticing that can be really helpful. So 3 little questions that can help when we notice, oh my goodness, okay, I'm being kind of driven by a part rather than
Mhm.
leading from my self energy. And that first one is just noticing that the part is there. That's our first step. So it's like, oh, who's here? And so when who's here, sometimes we might get a name of this part. Sometimes it might be a feeling in our body. Sometimes we might see a color or that, but like just noticing, okay, a protective part of me has kind of jumped into the driver's seat. Who's here? Is
Yeah.
that noticing? And as we notice, really just bringing our curiosity, no judgment. These parts are all doing the best they can to keep us safe. So we don't want to be angry or blame them or judge them. It's like, who's here? Oh, thank you for showing up. You're letting me know I don't feel safe right now. Awesome that you're trying to help out. And then our second step is just getting to know that part. Hey, what are you worried about? Because again, these parts jump into the driver's seat when they feel worried that we're not equipped to cope. Yeah. So, what are
Mhm.
you worried about? What are you trying to keep me safe from right now? If we weren't driving for perfectionism, what are you worried will happen? And then the third step is just asking them, what do they need to feel safe? So,
Mhm.
in order for you to step out of the driver's seat, so I can get back to some of that courage and curiosity that might serve us best in this situation, what do you need right now? And it might be a butterfly hug, or it might be to reminded we're just not there yet, or it might be something else. But just trying to work with these parts. I like to think of them as kind of like my inner toddlers, because
Mm.
often they came in line online quite young when we didn't have any better ways to do it. They often don't realize now that I'm 52 years old and actually got some other resources. And so again, just moving towards these parts with love and care and appreciation and curiosity is a great way for us to start to untangle when we suddenly feel like we've been sucked through the vortex back to those behaviors we
Mm.
know we don't want to be anymore. What's going on inside of us?
Yeah. You mentioned toddler. A little baby becomes a toddler when
Yeah,
suddenly the crawling is no longer enough and the pulling up is
yeah,
exciting. And eventually it's got to put one foot in front of another to
yeah,
get from point A to point B. And there are going to be spills and falls along the way,
yeah,
but they do it with curiosity. They
yeah,
do it fearlessly and they do it with excitement.
yeah,
How can we get that in us? Because at some point we have to launch. At
yeah.
some point we have to stop burying the truth out of fear of not being accepted or loved, out of fear of it not landing well, not getting the desired outcome we want. How do we get to that point where we say, okay, I got to stop crawling and I got to start walking?
Yeah, and the good news is those things are still within all of us, right? It's just
Hmm.
that we got a little overcautious along the way. As we were growing up, we bumped against the edges of the table, we maybe
Right.
fell down hard and it hurt our bottoms. And so we've learned these protective parts to try to avoid pain, right? Our brain does
Hmm.
not like pain. And one of the things that fascinates me is when we experience social pain, like embarrassment or rejection, the same parts of our brain light up as if we experienced physical pain. So the
Hmm.
brain does not differentiate between physical, emotional, and social pain. And pain is really there as that learning mechanism for our brain to say, oh, not that way. But what we get then is too cautious. We're like, oh, not that way. Right, now I'm going to stay stuck rather than keep exploring forward to your point. So,
Hmm.
again, I'm going to sound like a little broken record here, but it'll bring us full circle. When we're feeling stuck, we come back to that place of, okay, I made a mistake, or that thing didn't work, or I didn't like the way that felt. I'm not there yet. What do I learn from this before
Hmm.
I take my next step forward? The beautiful thing about us as toddlers, when we're learning to pull ourselves up and walk and do all those amazing things, is we play and we experiment constantly until we figure out how to get up and walking and not bumping into so many things and falling over. So we have to keep playing and experimenting. In order to do that, we have to feel safe enough. So that's that secure attachment piece. Again, butterfly hugs, shaking off. Okay,
Hmm.
I'm going to get in there and try it again. And then lastly, we need to believe that we have this innate goodness within us, that we can figure this stuff out. We will find our ways. It might not look like we first imagined, but if we keep playing and experimenting, staying curious and opening to the learning, keep asking for help and connecting with each other as we go, we will get to the places where we are meant to be.
Yeah, it's so well said. And you know what? Sometimes we have to go through a little pain. Sometimes we got to fall on our tuchuses every once in a while to learn and understand ourselves better and get closer to our authenticity and to speak truthfully. It could lead to so many amazing discoveries in life, not only about who you are, but even better, more fulfilling relationships and friendships and careers and on and on and on it can go from being honest and truthful and just stop being such a good girl, goody two shoes all the time. Um,
Absolutely.
Dr. Chelle McQuaid, I have thoroughly enjoyed this time with you. Wow. Tell everybody where they can find you. I know you've got the Good Girl Game Changers podcast. When do your episodes air?
Yeah, so we're in a little season hiatus at the moment, but there's
Okay.
lots of goodness there, and we kick off again next month. So you can come to the goodgirlgamechangers.com, and
Right.
that's our website. You'll find all the podcasts there. You'll also find lots of, we call them play sheets with different exercises like the ones
Mm.
I've described today, a ton of others. You'll find our books there, the perfectly imperfect little girl. There's both an adult's version that's a bit spicy and a kid's version for the younger people in your life. It's a storybook. I went and rewrote that little golden book based on the research that we had done. And then there's also the Perfectly Imperfect Women's Journal. And that really takes you through those skills of self-compassion, secure attachment, and self-leadership with lots of different practical tools that you can play with. So head on over to the Good Girl Game Changers. You'll also find us, of course, on your favorite podcasting platform.
Outstanding. A couple of years ago, there was a great novel called Gone Girl. I say this is Gone Good Girl.
Exactly.
Dr. Chelle McQuaid, thank you so very much. Till next time, I'm going to say.
I look forward to it, Dom. Thanks for having me.
Anytime. What a great episode. Clearly, I'm enamored by Chelle, and I'm so excited to have her back again. But I am really excited to have you on, as we do at the end of every podcast. It is a segment of Dear Dominique. And today's little email is this, and it's very heartfelt. Dear Dominique, I am going through the ending of a marriage that I was desperately hoping to save, but he's moved on and I'm left feeling gut punched. I'm a woman of faith and I trust that God is guiding me and that in the end, my life will be better. I've observed you as you've gone through that transition too. How did you personally manage the waves of pain, sorrow, and tears? One minute I feel strong and that Jesus is with me. The next minute, the awful waves come again and I don't know how to feel better. I do know things take time. What did you find that helped you during those waves? Thank you for sharing if you can. P.S. I'm thrilled for you that you are very happily on the other side. So, first of all, there is another side, and I'm glad I get to show you that. And I'm honestly glad that I journeyed with you all in the dark side. It's living proof. My testimony is no different than anybody else's. We all have to journey through the darkness. And you said one thing that really stuck out to me. And you said you feel strong and that Jesus is with you, but then the awful waves come again. Can I encourage you that Jesus is with you in the awful waves and in the darkness? It's when he's most with you, in fact. And I personally would call on him the most during those dark times because I knew I couldn't do it on my own. I knew I needed that wisdom, that discernment, and that comfort. So please feel that even in the darkness, you're not alone. In terms of your Heavenly Father is with you, first and foremost, you are valued and you are loved. And that kind of hooks back to what Chelle and I talked about in this podcast is the root belief of value and that we are inherently valued. We are born valued. You are valuable. Just because somebody did not choose you doesn't mean that you aren't chosen. So please let that resonate. You are valued by the most important entity that there is. And if you have to say that to yourself over and over, please do. I would encourage you to kind of bury yourself in scripture. There is no greater word than that comes from God. There are so many wonderful passages that talk about pain and grief. I found that to be very helpful. My daily devotionals, my books, journaling, very, very powerful. What's really good about doing that is that you will have sort of this memento. And my friend Holly and I both did it as we were going through our divorces. And we even reflected on it not that long ago. We went back and we looked in those pages and we felt the feelings of that woman then, and it seemed sad and hopeless and so full of pain and so wrought with emotion. And yet both of us are on the other side and we think, wow, look how far we've come, look how far he's brought us. And you're going to get there and you're going to have that perspective, but please don't run from the pain. Please don't. It's where we learn the most about ourselves. It's actually where we grow closer in our faith. So don't run from it. I encourage you to exhale into it, learn from it, feel it. Yes, celebrate those good days. Celebrate the days when, you're feeling like, okay, I'm getting on track, and realize it's kind of like riding the ocean. Some waves will be calmer and some are going to be really tall and they're just going to smack you in the face. It's okay. It is a process and you will move through, I promise. If you have a good friend, somebody you can really share your heart with, I encourage that. If you don't feel like you can go there, this would be a great time to maybe seek counseling, whether it's a faith-based counselor, behavioral, type counselor, behavioral psychologist, whatever you feel you need. If you just need an outlet, seek it. But I promise you, it will pass. There will be another side. And you will have a beautiful story to tell about your growth, your evolution, and, hopefully what I'm believing in, somebody better for you who loves you and values you and appreciates you even bigger and better than you ever felt possible. So thank you for your incredibly sweet message. And I hope this provided some help. Thank you for tuning in to Over 50 and Flourishing. You guys make this podcast what it is. You know, you fill my heart, and it's because of you that I get these wonderful people who connect with me that I can bring on, these great thought leaders, people to inspire. And I look forward to further conversations that hopefully we all benefit from. Wherever you listen or watch, can I encourage you to rate, review, subscribe, and share, whether it's Apple, Spotify, you name it. That's how we grow here on Over 50 and Flourishing. And please follow me on YouTube and subscribe to this channel. The podcast comes out every Monday. And I'm so glad you're here. Thank you so very much. And I'll see you next week.